There we go.
Hi, I'm Pat Dennis, and welcome to TV Bookshelf. Today I'm thrilled. I'm interviewing a very favorite person, a favorite author of mine, Monica Pulver.
That's right.
And I'm hesitating with Monica Pulver because actually you have a lot of names, and that is the one that I am most familiar with, but a lot of your readers are familiar with the other names you write under, and they are?
Monica Ferris, and I used to be half of Margaret Fraser, and let's see, I was Margaret of Shaftesbury in the Society for Creative Anachronism. I think that's all.
Wow, it's more names than America's Most Wanted, a person on that show.
I've often said that they'd see all those aliases, you know. People would assume I'm guilty of some crime.
But Monica Pulver wrote this, which is a great book.
Thank you.
It is.
This is a new edition of a book that came out from St. Martin's Press in, boy, 87, I think, 1987. So it's been rewritten, and it's done by a local small press. I love the cover. They did a really good job on the cover.
I love the cover.
This is really nice. And it's a strange sort of story. It's about a group of recreationists, hobbyists, they're also sometimes called. They recreate the medieval period. It's like the Civil War people, only this is medieval. And every year in eastern Pennsylvania, they take over a campground, and we have a war.
And now you're a member of this group?
I used to be. I'm not active in it anymore.
And what is the name? I know the name of the group.
The group is the Society for Creative Anachronism.
Wow.
It started in Berkeley about, boy, it must be close to 40 years ago now. A long, long time ago.
And what better to write about?
Well, yeah, they have unchoreographed fighting in real armor with wooden swords. And I used to go to the war all the time. It's a great time. And we were sitting around a campfire one night, and we were talking about a man who used to loan his armor to his squire. And the squire won a couple of tournaments because people didn't know who it was inside the armor. They assumed it was this knight who was a very famous fighter. And I thought, you know, you could get away with murder doing that. And I said, gee, someone should write a book. And someone else said, well, why don't you then? And so I did, and so that's the book. That was my first published novel.
Well, that's fun.
It was fun. It was great fun. It was fun writing it. It was fun talking to the people and interviewing them. And I put some people that I knew at the war in the book, and it was interesting.
Now, I think a lot of people that are authors are role players at their typewriter or their word processor.
Yes.
They love to play the roles of their characters, but you were actually able to play it for real.
At the war, yes,
real.
I was Margaret of Shaftesbury, abbess of Dear Abbey. And I had a little bear I carried around with me. He was Father Hugh of Paddington. He was a mass priest at the Abbey. I wrote some mysteries about him that got published in Alfred Hitchcock's Mystery Magazine.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it was fun. It was an interesting thing. I thought when I started writing I was going to write historicals. And that was one of the reasons that I got into the SCAs, because I was interested in medieval history. But as it turned out, the novel was a mystery, and it turned out that that's all I can write that I can sell. I can write other kinds of books, but I can't sell them.
Mysteries are popular, and you've done so well with your mysteries. Now, your very popular series that's out right now is your Betsy Devonshire series.
Yes, that's these. These are there are 6 of them out, with the 7th coming out in January. They're set in Excelsior. It's about a woman who comes to stay with her sister, who owns a needlework shop in Excelsior, and about a week after she arrives, the sister's murdered.
Wow.
And she doesn't have any place else to go. She hasn't got any money, and there's a needlework shop there, and that she's going to inherit anyway. And she says, well, it's got stock, it's got employees, how hard can it be? So she keeps the shop open and finds out that it's not as easy as it looks, as I was busy finding out, because I thought needlework was easy.
Had you done needlework?
No. Well, I did a little bit of embroidery. My mother is a terrific needleworker. And she's like every other needleworker in the world. Oh, it's easy. If you can count to 5, you can do hardanger. I can count to 100, and I can't do hardanger. Let me tell you, it's not as easy as it looks. Well, nothing's as easy as it looks. You know, I mean, writing books isn't as easy as it looks.
So you had to learn. Did you feel like, as a writer, did you have to learn to do needlework to write the books?
You can't write what you know is the rule. And so, yeah, absolutely. In the first book, Betsy is trying to learn to knit. She can knit, but she can't purl. I couldn't purl to save my life. I finally had to get a friend to come on a 4th of July picnic, and I said, bring your knitting. And I stood behind him, and I said, all right, Buster, purl. And he purled across the row, and I thought, oh, okay. And I don't know now what the problem was, but I understand it's not uncommon that people can't purl. You know, it's weird. It's a fascinating thing, needlework. We don't think of it as fascinating because it's so homely. But there's some absolutely magnificent stuff being done out there.
Oh, I bet. And I love the titles. Now, these are sold not only in bookstores, but they're also sold in needlecraft shops.
Yeah, a lot of needlework shops are carrying them now.
Oh, and are you the first fiction author to be carried in such shops?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Well, no, once in a while you'll see Erling Fowler's quilting mysteries in the shops that handle quilting materials. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it was seeing those that made my publisher decide that, or my editor at Berkeley, decide that someone should be writing these, because she's a needleworker.
Uh-huh.
And so she sent me, she asked me if I would do this. And I, like Betsy, how hard can it be, you know?
But you fell in love
with
it. And it was very wise to have a character who didn't know how to do it at the beginning.
Well, you know, that was kind of, I meant for Margot Berglund to be my sleuth. I started out with her, but she owned a successful needlework shop and she knew everything about needlework. Well, again, write what you know. And it's not just needlework, it's owning your own business. You know, as you're discovering, because you're getting into the publishing business yourself, there's a lot more to it than it looks like, and it's a complicated thing.
It is.
I took a course at the community college on small business ownership, and I thought, oh my God, I don't begin to know enough. So I murdered Margot, and I brought in her ignorant sister. So as I learned things, Betsy learns things.
So everything in a book that happens, you really research.
I've
you
done
go out
it,
and take classes on how to own a business if you're writing about a business owner.
Right. And there's one, this one is about the antique car run from New London to New Brighton.
A murderous yarn.
And it's, I got to go ride in a Stanley steamer and watch them start one up and ride in a lot of these old cars. That is wonderful. That is so fascinating. These ancient cars that go ticky, ticky, ticky down the road, they're still running. Some of these cars are starting their second century.
So it's your love of history and research that...
I would rather research than write.
Really?
Well, how about you? You write.
I write, and I love the research part of it, I do, but I've never written anything historical.
Have you ever thought about it?
Yeah, I have thought about it, but boy, there's so many, there's so many
lots of options. That's right.
So many options out there.
And another problem too is you start doing the research, and next thing you know, you're off on camping trips or you're off riding in these old cars, and you don't get any work done because you're so busy learning about the stuff. It can become a thing in itself.
And I'm dyslexic, so it'd be like the War of 1218. So
I think there was a war.
Probably. There's always a war.
There's always a war back in those days.
So, yeah. No, I admire people that can write as well as you do and do all the research and still make it lively and fun, and they're very fun books.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. These are what are called cozies or traditional mysteries. It's an amateur sleuth. Betsy Devonshire has no training as a private eye or a police officer or anything like that. Is a pseudonym of two people. We used to do book signings together, and I'd sign Margaret and she'd sign Fraser, and our handwriting was totally different. So there's a fairly famous person in the needlework world. Her name is Susan Greening Davis, and she goes to needlework shops and she turns up at conventions and she gives talks on improving your business. She gives them to shop owners, how to improve your business. And she said the biggest element of fantasy in my books is not that Betsy falls over a body everywhere she goes, but that she has time to sleuth. Because when you own your own business, it's like a 12-hour day every day.
Oh,
It's unbelievable.
I have this publishing house now that's publishing other authors, and it is 24/7.
Yeah,
I can't believe it. It's just, I'd love to go to get a real job to get away from my work sometimes. Just. Let me read I love your titles for this series. You have Crewel World, and that's Crewel, Framed in Lace, A Stitch in Time, Unraveled Sleeve, A Murderous Yarn, Hanging by a Thread, and Cutwork.
Cutwork will be the new one.
That's the new one. That is coming out?
January 6th is the pub date of it, and it's set at the art fair out there.
Oh.
I got a lot off my chest about modern art. It was really, really fun.
Well, we recognize any of the artists? Did you do anything with any Minnesota artists in it, or?
No, because most of them are suspects in the murder. So, I couldn't do too many of them. I talk about, though, the world of art. I mean, there's different levels. There's craft fairs, then there's art and craft fairs, then there's art fairs, then there's juried art fairs, and then there are the big, important art gallery presentation kinds of things. Then there's the museum end of stuff. And each person is very jealous of his place and is always trying to move up a class. There's a lot of fighting that goes on.
Oh, really?
It's really kind of amazing.
Is there a lot of stealing of ideas also? Because you have that in other art forms where people are afraid their script is being stolen or their line is being stolen.
Well, that is the biggest sin, is stealing somebody else's idea.
For
you can do derivative, and critics love derivative because then they get to write about how derivative this thing is of somebody else's art form, or it's a next step in a certain art progression. But to take an idea whole and move it is a huge no-no.
I would have no worry about stealing any. I have no skill at all with my hands. I go to Sew
Really?
What if we need a button sewn on. I do. I've tried to safety pin them. It doesn't work. I have no skill. I tried Crewel Work. I tried the stamp kind where it's even little cross stitch where they have the photo there for you to follow and you put little X's, and I ended up like with this massive lump at the back. Actually, the back was more interesting than the front. I just don't know
There
why.
are purists who absolutely hate it. You can't do a knot to start something. You have to run it under things, and you have to just work in certain areas. And it's just there's people who talk about the backs have to look as good as the front, and they get into all this other stuff. But there are also people who say, well, if you put the sharp end of the needle through first, you're doing it right.
So as a writer, you're always learning.
Always. And I had no idea when I got into this how huge this world was and how diverse. The two big differences right now are counted cross stitch and needlepoint. And needlepoint is you take a canvas and you paint a picture on it. And then you stitch over it, which I think is stupid because you'll pay hundreds of dollars for these canvases and then stitch over this painting that you paid so much money for. So it's kind of strange that way. And counted cross stitch is exactly what you were talking about. Here's the pattern over here, and it's got all these little symbols on it, and you put an X over here on the cloth.
No, mine was even the easier kind.
The pattern was stamped on the cloth?
on it, and I couldn't do it.
And you couldn't do it?
No, I can't even do those little things. You know those little pot holders they make where you put the loop at the ends?
And you can't do it. And yet you are a book publisher and a published author.
I'm a publisher, yes, I do all, but do I do it well? But I do, yes, I do well. I've been really lucky. I work very hard, and thank God for word processors. It's really helped me.
Oh,
more
huge, huge. It's made a big difference in the whole publishing world because it makes it a lot easier.
And speaking of the publishing world, I find it interesting that Murder at War. Why don't you hold? I love that cover so much. Hold it up again, because I think it's one of the best covers I've ever seen.
And it's computer generated.
Yeah, I know. I heard it was digital art.
Yes,
it's
amazing.
Wonderful. I remember when Tom Clancy was here and he was being interviewed. Remember when he was going to buy the twins? And,
oh yeah, I remember that.
And one of the newsmen asked him in the audience. He said, "Well, what's your next book about?" And his answer was $29.95, which was a great answer.
Wouldn't say that. But I think you have to give some kind of indication. Otherwise, people won't buy it if they're
Well, you've
not
already
interested.
written it. You said you're just working on rewriting it and.
Well, cut work is done, and I'm working on one after that, which is
for the
called,
same series
for the Betsy series called Crewel World, and it's set at the Nashville market.
Oh, and at Christmas time?
At Christmas time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a.
I love that title. What a great! That could be a country song, actually, if you think about it.
Yeah, it could, couldn't it?
Yeah, you might want to throw
Crewel World, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I threw my baby over the 9th floor railing.
There you go.
That's how. Yeah, this one she'd have to be going home in a coffin at the back of the train, and you're up in front with the dog, and you're sad.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah, and
you
lost your knitting needles in your pickup truck. You'll have a lot of fun with that book.
Yeah, that would be kind of fun, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Now, but you also have written other medieval mystery novels, haven't you?
Yes, I wrote a series of novels with a friend, Margaret Fraser. Gail Fraser, excuse me. We were Margaret Fraser together. I was Margaret, she was Fraser. And that is set in England in the early 1400s, early 15th century, late medieval England. And it was set at the Priory of St. Fritiswide. She's the patron saint of Oxford. And the protagonist is a nun named Dame Fravis. And those were fun to do because both of us, she had been in the Society for Creative Anachronism too. And so we took a lot of our medieval research. For example, we had a funeral feast in one of them. Well, we'd been to feasts. And so we knew the kind of food that was served and we knew what it tasted like even. And since we'd worn the costumes of that period, we knew how to walk in them and what they felt like and so on. Learn by doing is very exciting and it lends an authenticity. I used to write the Peter Brichter series. The wife in that thing bred Arabian horses, and I took lessons in horseback riding, and I used to go to horse shows. So because you can do research in books all you want, but sooner or later you've got to go do the thing. You know, just like I had to learn how to knit, and I can now do counted cross stitch after a fashion. I usually do a pattern just long enough to find out where the big problem in it is. Then it goes in a drawer and I can write about the problem Betsy's having doing that pattern.
I should try to do a mystery series about a woman who cleans her house, because that would be good for me. I'd have to research on how to clean my house.
Yeah.
And that would be really
That would
fun.
be, yeah, about the Merry Maids.
Oh, there you go.
Because then you're going in all different houses all the time.
Now you have so
that's a
many
good
books.
idea.
Oh, thanks. Well, take
Write
it.
that
We both will be coming. We'll be writing under
No co-writing though. Because
Pat Pulver. Or
No,
No.
Because when Gail and I, we did 6 of those books together, those medieval books together, and we either had to break up the relationship or kill one another.
I could never.
It's
I cannot
very
imagine.
hard.
And
It's very
some
hard.
people can do it, but very few people can
Yeah,
do it.
there are some who do it and they do it beautifully and they do it for a long time. But the woman who edited the books that we did together said that she had edited a number of collaborations, 1 novel each.
Now you have so many books out. How can people find out about them? Well, do you have a website?
I have a website, monica-ferris.com, and I have covers there and sample chapters even, if people want to do that.
And then I think your publisher has a website too.
Berkeley
And
Publishing. Now, there used to be 3 publishers. One was Putnam, one was Penguin, and one was Berkeley. And now they're all 3 together, and it's Penguin Putnam with Berkeley as a division.
Do a Google search.
Of Mary Monica Pulver or Monica Ferris, either one, and it'll turn up.
Everything will turn up.
Yes, yes. I have pictures of me in other hats.
Oh, do you? I love it. Now, do you always wear a hat?
I try always when I'm doing an appearance, when I'm doing something like this, an interview, and when I go to church on Sunday. I have a purple outfit. I mean, purple. It's not lavender, it's not mauve, it's purple. And a huge purple hat edged in marabou feathers. And somebody came up to me one time. I don't know if she was joking or if she was serious. She said, "Are you the bishop?"
Oh, wow. Great.
Because it was purple. Yes, I love wearing hats. It's a signature.
And is it a security blanket in a way too? Because it makes you feel like, oh, I'm me. I'm wearing.
Well,
this.
actually, I'm not me. When I'm
comfortable.
wearing this, I'm Monica Ferris.
Oh, okay.
When I'm home, then I run around in jammies all day or jeans and stuff. But when I put this on, then I become Monica Ferris.
So it's your signature and it's your costume in
It's
a
a
way.
costume. It's like a persona that I can put on.
I always think of you in your hats, and I'm sure so many of your fans do also.
And I love them. I love hats.
Do people give you hats as presents?
Yes, yes. And there's a little shop in Muncie, Indiana, where there's a mystery convention there called Magna Cum Murder every October, and there's a little shop just a few blocks from the hotel. So I get a new hat there every year, and they're just amazing. I mean, this is just like middle of the road. You should see some of the stuff she just. It takes a certain amount of nerve when you put it on to go out in it, but then I put it on and I become Monica Ferris.
Well, I could see if you were at Cub Foods, somebody.
Oh,
might
no.
just-
Are you the bishop? Come to bless the foods.
How many hats do you think you have?
I don't know, probably somewhere between 30 and 40.
It's a lot of hats.
Yes, I've got some really old ones, antique hats. They're wonderful. And each one is different. Sometimes I have a party at my house and people will start trying on the hats, even the guys. We all end up in the bathroom trying on hats. Because again, it's like putting on a personality.
I gave a publication party once for one of my books, and I asked people to wear hats.
Did they?
And I had heard that some people were complaining, "Why do I have to wear a hat? I don't want to wear." But later I heard they also, what a wonderful idea for an icebreaker, because you could go over and say, "Where did you get your hat?"
Where did you get that hat? Yes.
And yet they used to be so commonplace. I really wish people would wear hats.
I wish they
more.
would too. I wish
Yeah.
they'd bring them back. People are kind of afraid of them. And also, if you've got your hair done real nice, you don't like to put on, because they really do mash your hair down.
Yeah.
But they're fun. They're fun. And the thing is, somebody can go into a bookstore and say, "There's this author. I don't know her name, but she wears these hats."
And what is your biggest joy about writing? Where do you find your joy in writing? You said in research. Is it also when you meet your readers? How is that for you?
I
is it
love meeting
you love it?
readers. They take my characters seriously. I had somebody come up to me one time and say very earnestly, "Please don't let Betsy get mixed up with Joe Mickles." You know, like she was really concerned about her. And it's a little bit scary, but it's very touching when they take them real. But I think the most satisfying is when you're working and the flow starts and the story just flows. You and the muse are having this wonderful conversation, and sometimes it gets moving along, and it's like, I didn't know that. So I don't know where some of the parts of the story come from.
And you're in your own sort of zone, aren't you?
Yeah,
It's just,
yeah, zone and flow and all those kinds of words, because you are. I mean, sometimes it goes for hours, and the time just flies, and then it's exciting. It's wonderful. Well, the whole thing's exciting. Well, you write. Getting the idea, it works when you write it. You sell it. Don't let anybody fool you. Imitation is not the sincerest form of flattery. Money is. When somebody you don't know offers you money for something you've written, that's flattery. And then to get the advanced copy of the thing, and there it is with your name and everything. It's all exciting.
Oh, I bet. Now, one thing, do you find this exciting? Because one of my favorite books in the world is Rewrites by Neil Simon, a brilliant book on the art of writing. How much do you rewrite? Do you rewrite
all the
time?
That's why the computer is a huge blessing to me, because back when I was writing on a typewriter, I would literally cut the paper, the story into pieces, and paste it or tape it down on other sheets of paper, trying to move it around to find the best place for it. So the computer enables you to do that instantaneously. I love rewriting. I think rewriting is probably one of the, I was going to say it's one of my favorite parts, but it's all favorite. But it is. How much do you like rewriting?
I love rewriting. I don't feel you can write unless you rewrite. I'm a crummy writer, but I'm a pretty good rewriter. And that's what I go to, because I rewrite and I rewrite and I rewrite. So,
are you in a writer's group?
I am in a writer's group, and that's very important. I think it always is.
Extremely important.
Do you meet every week with your writers group?
Ours meets every week, and it's amazing what they can pick up and what they can see, how they strengthen the writing. Your character's not into this scene deeply enough. Criticism like that, writing criticism, as opposed to like fan criticism.
How many people are in your group?
Well, there's about 12, but usually only 8 or 9 will come to any given meeting.
And do you get your manuscript to them beforehand, or do you just read it out loud there?
We bring it in. I bring a copy for everybody in the room, and then I read it, and they follow along, and then they scribble all over it and make cutting remarks.
Oh, I know, doesn't it?
Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it's so hard, it's so painful.
I know. I can do 800 men going to war, and they wanted a stripper. I can entertain in front of them. But doing a writer's workshop can be so scary. Standing up reading your writing is a lot more scary than doing that,
That's because when you're writing, there's nothing between you and them. You can't say they didn't like the color of the paper, or they didn't like the color of the ink. It's you. They say writing is sitting down at a typewriter and now a computer and opening a vein, because you are on that page. And if they don't like it, it's like they don't like you, and that can be very painful.
And as you know, I do stand-up comedy, and what was interesting to me about writing was that here I'm doing stand-up in front of people, 2 feet from them sometimes, just going at them, whatever, having fun. Writing is so much more intimate.
Isn't that amazing?
Isn't it? They take
because it's only
into
you,
the room.
you and the machine that you're writing on, and yet it's more intimate. Yeah. You're right. There's a closeness and openness there that isn't in even public appearance. You
realize they're sitting in their bedroom, in their bed, reading you, or they're taking you around the house reading you, or they're going to something major in their life and they're reading your book on the way, on the train.
Sometimes they read it as an escape too, and that's why I like the cozies like this, because they're comfort reads.
They are.
In these books, justice happens, and that can be very important if you're going through a time in your life when you don't see that.
And it's important right now, I think. I love cozies. I find them, I like hard-boiled. I like mainstream literature. I like any sort of writing. But cozies can comfort me, and they can, sometimes I just need to relax.
A place to go for a while where it's safe and it's all right.
Sort of like a spa for the brain, huh? Sort of where you just...
You have a real talent for that. That is good. A spa for the brain. I want to use that. Okay.
You're welcome.
We steal things. Writers steal things all the time.
I'm going to wear a hat. I have such a big hat, I can't even get hats. I do. I'm one of those people with a... But I love hats.
Oh, come to my house. I have a couple of hats I can't wear because they're too big.
I've got... This is... Besides just my own personality, big hat, I have this head that's... But I love. I would
come with me to Muncie one of these years. I'll take you over to Maddie Coleman, and we'll try on hats.
I would love to. I plan to go to that convention. I haven't got to it. You're going to Mayhem in the Midlands is a great convention. They'll be next spring in Omaha for people to go to. Well, there's all sorts of wonderful writing events in Minneapolis, but there's wonderful writers, and you are one of them, and one of Minnesota's gifts. To the world.
Well, so are you.
I love your work.
You are with your work.
And so we have Murder at the War, and we have your wonderful Betsy Devonshire series. And thank you so much, Mary Monica Pulver, also known as Monica Ferris, and Margaret Fraser,
Yes,
and a few other names that she once used in Iowa that was just a weekend thing. So, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And tvbookshelf.com.
There you go.
Find out more.
There you go. There you go.